So if you'll notice, everybody I've picked up so far is what color? Some type of a shag color, right? Now, this thing right here, I throw it, and it's probably one of them things that's, you know, fish do dumb things for dumb reasons all the times, because they're not real smart. No matter how much we want to think they are, they're not smart. I mean, we are just not attuned to their world at times, but they are not smart animals by any means. Is anybody in here ever eaten a metal hot dog? Or a plastic hamburger? They do it every day. They're dumb. But this bait holds a real special place. Anybody have that bait in that color that you just have some memories that makes it special to you, and it makes it hard to not throw that color when you're going to throw that bait? You might have that. This black loon colored whopper plopper is that for me. I'm gonna tell you guys a quick story. It's one of my favorite stories, and there's more meaning to it than I could probably explain, but I'll do my best. So when I started guiding, I had another job for 2 years, and then I started doing video content, and I started getting a lot of phone calls because it's hard to stand out here if you're just a guy that. It's just a guy that says, hey, I'm going to start a guide business, and you put up a website. Well, it doesn't really work like that. You know, and that's kind of how I'd done it the first 2 years and just trying to do word of mouth and all that, but only getting to take, you know, a couple trips a week or whatever. Yeah, that's how I felt. Exactly. It just wasn't like I was working every day of my life and not getting anywhere. And so then I started doing the video content, and it starts getting me a lot of trips, and I'm having to turn down trips left and right. And so but, you know, I have two young boys. My boys are 6 and 9 now. At the time, they were either 2 and 5 or 3 and 6 at the time. So very young children. My wife does not make a lot of money by any means. She's a pre-K special ed teacher, so she's not raking in the money in a small town to boot. So it was a big risk for me to decide to go full time. And it was something that, looking back on it, I was dumb for not having done it months before that. But at the time, I wanted to be so sure. You know what I mean? And so my whole life was riding on this because I walked away from a very stable, you almost couldn't get fired from that job I had. I mean, it was stable as it could be, you know, good situation for our family. It was a salary job, you know, everything that you could ask for as far as, you know, being comfortable as far as that goes. But I wanted to do this. And so I made the decision to walk away from that, turn in my 2-week notice, and I worked my last day at that company on a Friday. And so my first trip was Saturday morning. After I worked on Friday, I go out Saturday morning, and I've got a husband and wife that I've never had before, and the wife can fish a little bit, and the husband's good, and I handed him a frog, and it's May. And he's catching some good fish on the frog. He's already caught a couple good ones. And I'll pick this up, start throwing it around. And real fast, 2 fish, 2 of the first few casts I threw with it, I had 2 fish make a big wake, and I pulled it away from them. Because they were coming to get it, like they were on it. And so when I saw that, I told the guy that was with me, I said, hey, they're fixing to tear this thing up. Do you want it? He's like, well, no, he's catching 4 and 5 pounders on a frog. He's not letting go of that. And his wife goes, I'll throw that whopper plopper. I said, okay. And so I tied it on a big rod to make it easy for her to cast with big braid and all that stuff. So it was like a swim bait rod with braid on it is what it was. No drag in it at all. And she throws it for about 10 minutes. And from about me to that stairwell right there, one blows up on it. And it's foul hooked in the top of the head. Like where the strongest, like all that fish's power. We ain't hold nothing back on her. Well, this is a 10-pounder. And it's chaos. Like, there's water flying everywhere because there's no drag in the setup, and it's short-lined. And so that fish is going across the top of the water like, and literally we're getting sprayed with water like it's insane. It's chaos, and I'm trying to get this fish in the net. We finally get it in the net, and I set the fish down the bottom of the boat, and the woman on the back deck is like jumping up and down screaming. And I'm like, man, that is a huge fish. And hey, Brian said, what's up, brother? But I didn't know how big it was till I picked it up and felt the weight of it. We put it on the scale and it being a 10 and a quarter. And we brought it in here, it weighed 10.30, and that was on this bait right here. Not this piece of plastic, because she got that fish mounted, And whenever she came back over here to pick up her mount from Lake Fork Taxidermy, I gave her the bait that she caught the fish on. I met up with her when she picked it up and gave her the bait. So, yeah, that was a moment where I was real nervous about my career choices. That was the first morning after I'd quit my job, and we put that fish in. I asked her if she wanted to get a certified weight. She said, yeah, and this fish was done spawning. They'd been spawning in that cove in February, so this fish wasn't spawning. So we brought her in to weigh her, and it was one of my best memories. You know, we put that fish in lava and we were driving back, and I don't get into this a whole lot, but I'm going to tell you, I ain't never felt more the presence of God telling me, you know what, you're fine, son. Like, I had chills. I'm getting chills. I'm about to start crying right now. Like, it just, you know what I mean? So this bait that was a long story, but this bait's really, really special to me. So that's why I always throw the black one, even though I'm not supposed to. So, and then this color, and I don't get it. I don't know why do they like the yellow better than, I don't know. But this old ugly yellow, goofy looking thing, it catches them. And this catches them year round in this color. You know, I don't even throw this white one unless it's right now. I'll throw white right now because it's fall and they're so shad heavy that I'll throw this a little bit, but it seems like I always do better when I throw this one. So if I really could do without this, I could really have these two colors right here. This for the cold water in the springtime and this for the rest of the year, and I could be just fine. And I really don't need another color of water. One thing I want to talk to you about that's pretty unique is because there's just not a lot of big poppers. And you know, I told you guys this Splashback Popper from 6 Cents, very unique with that triangular shape that it has, kind of boat V bottom it has. This bait walks very well. Walks very well, especially this big one. Now it sits like this in the water when it's sitting still, but when you move it, it gets horizontal, and it will spit and walk and sputter. And if you're around big shad, if you've seen the big shad and you happen to own one of these, I highly suggest tying it on and doing that pop, 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 stop, because that bait's going to go and it's going to throw water everywhere with that big lip on it. It's going to throw more water than that spook. You know, I like this spook. And it is kind of my favorite, you know, especially as we're transitioning from summer to fall. But this bait's kind of taking this one out of play because when they're real active, let me say, this is taking this out of play right now when the fish are chasing, because this bait throws so much water and draws so much attention to it that I really like it better than this one. Now, you know, May, you know, throughout the summer, when you need that more subtle deal, then this is the deal, no doubt about it. But this is a really good bait, and I don't talk about this bait a lot, and I don't know why. But I don't think this bait gets the run and gets the credit and the play that it deserves. I never hear anybody talk about it, but it's a very unique bait. It's a unique take on a popper. It's got great hooks. I mean, it's just a great bait. And it comes out of the package ready to go. And 6 Cents, they do such a good job of everything that they make is such a premium product. So, how many of you have never heard of the Splashback Popper? Never? See? That's what I'm saying. And you guys are all y'all are bass fishermen. Y'all haven't heard of it. I mean, it's a really good bait. And they even have a video. When you go to their website at 6centsfishing.com, they have a video that they took and got some footage of fish eating this thing before they released it. And you'll be like, like you see a bunch of big giant fish coming in. It's advertisement content, but it's good advertisement content. So, what y'all doing here, man?
Yeah, decided to return tomorrow.
Oh, that's right, y'all doing. What's up, Peg? How you been, buddy? Hey, Eric. These are some of my good friends. I've known these guys for a long time. It's Mr. Brian South and his son Pake. And if y'all don't know, Pake is somewhat of a legendary figure around here. That sucker was. People always go, "Who's that little 8-year-old driving that boat?" It was him when he was like this tall. He was a little bitty sucker driving that boat around. He would back it off the trailer and load it on the trailer all by himself. That was awesome. Any questions on Topwaters? Anybody? No? Okay. Anybody need to know what kind of line to throw it on or setup or anything like that? Y'all know with treble hook baits, you don't want to throw too big of a rod. Anything that's got a treble hook, you need some bend in it. These heavier ones, this big one, and this whopper plopper, just because they're big and because of the knot stress factor from throwing a heavy bait, You know, when you sling that heavy bait, we're making real long casts with these covering water. When you sling that bait, if you're throwing that on like a 15-pound mono, it's going to stress that knot and will break your knot after you cast it so many times. So I throw these big baits on braid, but I'll throw them on like a 7.5 medium heavy. You know, something that where that bait's going to sag the end of that rod, because I want that, especially when I'm using braid, I need that rod to have some shock absorption on these treble hooks. And a rod with some tip makes it easier on a walking bait to walk it. So don't rear back on them, you know, just kind of reel set it like a crankbait with the treble hook. So. No, I don't. So that's a good question. Thank you. On my walking baits, I actually want a knot that points straight out. And I'll tell you why. The way this bait works, what makes it walk, is you pulling it straight forward and then feeding it slack. You actually don't want that bait to be able to do whatever it wants to do. You want that bait to come, when you pull it, you want that bait to come straight at you. And you pull it for just a split second, then point your rod back at it when you're walking it. Every time that you tap the end of your slack, you need to point the rod back at it like this. So when you do that, that gets the bait coming to you, and then when you let up on that slack, that's what makes it turn. But you have to make it come to you before it can turn. So if you've got a loop nut on there and it can kind of just you can't get that smooth, you know, that deal where it just kind of goes like this and goes like this and goes like this. It'll be a little more, you won't be able to get that rhythm going with a loop knot as easily as you can with a knot that points straight out. I tie a knot called a Homer circle knot. It's essentially like a fisherman's knot, but it has an overhand knot at the base of the knot around the main line and the tag end. It makes it just a lot stronger version of the fisherman's knot. It's a really, really strong knot with mono or fluorocarbon. So it's about as strong a knot as you can tie with mono and fluorocarbon. I've never had any problems with it whatsoever. And you can tie it with braid too. This is the one time, you know, Ronnie was here earlier talking about the buzz baits. He said he ties polymer knot every time on braid. This is the one time that I'll tie a different knot besides a polymer knot with braid is on a walking bait. When I'm putting braid on a walking bait, because I need that knot to point straight away from the bait. And I tie that Homer circle knot. Do not tie a regular style clinch knot with braid on your walking bait. That braid will slip and you will lose it. If you tie a fisherman's knot on here, this bait's going bye-bye. That braid's going to slip and it's going to come, you're going to sling it halfway across the pond. The reason that Homer circle knot works is because it has that overhand knot. I wish I had some line. I don't have any line. There's no. Riley took all the fishing poles with him. So all you do is you run your line through, and you got your main line. You got your line come through out here. You make an overhand knot around that main line and hold that overhand knot open. And you wrap up 3, you wrap down 3, you go back through that overhand knot, and then you pull from the tag in the main line and the bait like that, and cinch it down. You gone? All right. See, hey, it's good to see y'all, man. Thanks for stopping by. So you have to have something to clinch that knot, to clinch that main line at the base of that knot, or that braid will slip. That's the only knot like that I found with braid that I can get away with. It doesn't ever slip. And it will if you don't tie right. Like, you got to cinch it down right and everything else. If you want to be safe, you can tie a polymer knot, and a polymer knot you will be able to walk that bait. There'll just be times when you miss a beat or something. You know, it won't be as easy to walk it. So.
Are you doing the same thing with the popper stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm throwing that on monofilament line. Even the smaller walking bait, or the medium-sized walking bait, I should say, because this isn't really a small bait, but everything other than these two right here, and it's just the weight. The weight on these two is the reason I use braid. But everything else that we've shown tonight, the poppers and this medium and the smaller walking baits and the smaller whopper ploppers and all that, I'm throwing monofilament line. You can I just do 15-pound mono, or even 12 pounds, fine. You can get away with it. You know, like Berkeley Big Game Mono, it's really strong line. It has a lot of stretch to it, which is a good thing with treble hooks having a lot of stretch. But yeah, that Homer circle knot is the strongest knot that I know of to tie on mono and fluoro.
If you are throwing a topwater bait, what's your next go-to?
Right now?
This time of the year?
Well, that lipless crankbait's my number one bait. Right now, this week on Lake Fork, that lipless crankbait's the number one bait.
If you're not throwing a hard bait, do you ever throw anything else?
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. So I've been throwing a lot of weightless Texas rig stick baits, like a Cinco. I'm throwing one that you can't get your hands on right now because it's all sold out. It's from 6 Cents as well. It's a new stick bait that's like they do with, I I hate being this guy that's like pro staff. I'm not. Like, I'm sitting here showing you a whopper plopper. I'm not on whopper plopper. I'm not on river to sea staff. I'll show you what works. The deal is with 6 cents, they just don't make any bad stuff. Like everything they do, they won't come out with something that's already been done unless they can improve it. And so like this stick bait they got, it's soft, it's a little bit skinnier, it has some different texture to the body, and it just has a different, it's got more shimmy. And I rig it on a 3/0 heavy wire EWG hook, and I throw it out there, and when it sinks, when you twitch it and then it starts sinking, it just tremors all the way down.
Well, what color is it?
Green with sparkle, but green with a blue flake, like a watermelon blue flake or watermelon red flake. We ran out of the ones with blue flake in my boat on that clout bait that I've been using, that stick bait from 6 cents. So we switched over to watermelon red. We're catching them on that. It doesn't really seem to make a big difference. Just a green base with some sparkle. Yep, that's the deal. And that is, so as far as, currently how I'm doing things, I'm taking these Topwaters, I'm taking this lipless crank. The lipless crankbait's been great this week. It's been great for bigger fish. Really been great for bigger fish this week. But I'm taking these moving baits, and I'm just flat getting it. Man, I get in the back part of the creek, and I'm moving, I'm covering, and I'm watching until I see one of two obvious things. I just tell people, we got to find the obvious. And the obvious is one of two things. Either you see the bass chasing bait, you see the surface activity, you see a little bit of schooling activity popping up. And I'm not talking about one pop or one blow up. I'm talking about an area where you see a concentrated area of fish pretty consistently blowing up as you're heading into it or something. Or behind you, you turn around and go back. That's number one obvious, and that's the best thing to see. The number two obvious is you visually see an overwhelming amount of bait fish. And I don't know how to explain to you what an overwhelming amount of bait fish is, other than when you see it, you won't doubt it. Like, you'll know this is what he's talking about. It's mind-boggling sometimes how much, like when you look across the surface and you can't see the end of the bait all the way around you, that's what I'm talking about. When you see that, I slow down and I pick up that stick bait. And it does actually catch the majority of our numbers of fish have been caught on that stick bait, on that soft plastic stick bait. We're catching our bigger fish a lot of times on the moving bait, but we have caught some good ones on the stick bait too. But so I'm covering water with shad baits, and then when I find them, the obvious, I stop.
So a lot of the slot fish are going to be with the stick baits.
No, unders. No, if I was you guys and I'm fishing a tournament tomorrow, I'm going to pick up smaller moving baits. I'm going to pick up, a lipless crankbait's good. It'll catch unders and slot fish. But I'm also going to have the smaller topwaters on. I'm going to have a little small swim bait with an underspin. That's going to be something you need to definitely have tied on if you're fishing for tournament unders. That's the smallest little swim bait you can find with an underspin is great for unders right now. And I'm going to get in the backs of these creeks, and I'm going to just cover all the water I can until I see one of those two obvious things. And when I see that, I'm going to stop. I'm going to be extremely thorough with that stick bait. Very, very, very slow with that stick bait.
So
What size stick bait?
5 inch.
5.
Yes, sir.
when you're covering that water, are you only in creeks where you have lots of grass around, or not necessarily?
I think the more grass, the better.
Yeah.
And the deal is, I'm fishing the grass, and I'm saying I'm fishing the back of the creek. Sometimes I can't get to the back of the creek. There's so much grass in some of the far northern creeks. You can't get, and the water's been dropping, so we have some really flat areas where you can't get all the way back. But what I'm doing is I'm fishing the scattered areas. So where the grass scatters out, where I've got the coontail, and some areas have a little bit of hydrilla mixed in, and it scatters out, and I can fish those moving baits through that scattered grass. I'm covering all of that I can, all the way, until I see the obvious. And when I see the obvious, I can't express how important it is for right now, for like today. I cannot express how important it is when you see the obvious, when you see the overwhelming bait, when you see the bass activity, how important it is to stop and go real slow and real thorough. You will absolutely buzz right by. You might drive right past 20 fish that you would have caught, and you maybe catch one of them if you're lucky and he bites it on the way through there. But if you catch one or you see the obvious and you stop, you might catch the 20. Like, we've had days where we're hunting, we ain't caught but one or two all morning, and all of a sudden we see the obvious, we get a bite and we stop, and then we don't leave there for hours because we're catching fish every 5 to 10 minutes in that area. So they're in a group. They're very few fish are alone right now. It's very rare to catch one that doesn't have some partners with him right now. They're definitely in groups. So slow down and get them.
When you're getting back, basically as you're on your search,
Mm-hmm.
are you kind of following the creek bend still? Are you still calling?
Not right now.
The drains?
Not right now. You can, and that's a good way if you're wanting to target a bigger fish. That's the best way. If you're wanting to target a bigger fish, the best way to me to do it is especially if that creek has a bunch of stumps, is to get like a Movement 80X or a Squirt Bill, a shallow diving crankbait that'll deflect off wood real good, and get outside of that grass a little bit and stay around that channel break, and really grind that channel up and down, and just keep moving up and down. If you get a bite, slow down, but for the most part, you're just going to stay around that creek channel and hit every piece of wood you can with that crankbait. That's the best way to try and catch a bigger fish specifically right now, but you don't have to, because what's happening is these fish are pushing up on these flats to feed, and they're roaming and they're bait oriented, and the big fish are mixed in with them now. The big fish have started getting mixed in with them now, so you don't have to target a bigger fish. You can catch them on accident now. Does that make sense? When I say you catch them on accident, like you can be over there catching little fish and then catch an 8-pounder right there too. Like it's happening. Yeah, exactly.
It sounds like you're kind of 5 feet or less is what you're.
Oh yeah.
fishing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not. There are certain people, and I'm kind of, if I wasn't a fishing guy, I'm prone to be this way myself, where I would rather go out and just try to catch a handful of fish, and I would much rather catch 5 big fish than 35 fish, and most of them be small. That's just kind of how I'm built personally, but it's my job to put people on fish. And most of your customers, yes, I want them to catch a big fish, and we're going to try and catch the biggest 5 fish we can every day. At the same time, I got to have people catch fish. Like, if you try to do that, I'm only going to catch 5 deal and really try to hone in on the big ones. You have a lot of days where you don't catch them. Like that's part of that deal. You're going to have a lot of bad days. So, that's a decision I have to make as a fishing guy that's a little bit different. So if it was just me going out to fish for myself, I would definitely spend some time concentrating on those channel breaks and trying to grind out a big bite. But that's not for everybody. If you want to go out and catch fish right now, it's a whole lot of fun to go out and just start whacking them, and you can. So yeah, everything that I'm doing right now is definitely less than 5 feet. It's shallow. Most of it's less than 3 feet. It's real shallow. Because the grass.
Are the birds going to tell you anything now?
I'm glad you asked that. That's something I noticed that week, and I meant to bring it up, and it had slipped my mind until just now. So thank you very much for that. One thing that I did notice this week, if you see a blue heron in the back of a flat, you will catch fish in front of him. It was 100% this week. Yeah, and he's on the bigger bait. And now, we have most of those fish we're catching from them herons are slot fish. The blue herons, what's so great about them is if you look at a blue heron and you look at a white egret, everybody know the difference? Yep, okay. If you look at them and look at their necks, a white egret has a little bitty pencil neck, and a blue heron's got a little bit thicker neck. Well, that blue heron, he's wanting to eat big gizzard shad, he's wanting to eat brim, he's wanting to eat small bass. He's eating the same thing that trophy bass eat, the bigger bait fish in the lake. So the herring, when he gets in the same areas as the bass, can really, really help you out. And that has definitely become a factor this week. Wherever we see a blue heron, like if I see a blue, and some of these flats are real expensive. Like who knows Glade Creek? Everybody here probably knows Glade Creek. Anywhere in that back glade, which you talk about a hard one to break down in the fall, because it's such a big, expansive flat. They can roam all over that, and there's grass scattered all across it. Like they can roam all over that thing. They can be anywhere in that thing. Like it's hard to find that needle in the haystack. Well, right now, if you go to Glade and you see a heron standing way out off the bank and he's in this much water because his butt's down in the water, he's about that much water. If you see that, you'll catch fish right out in front of him. You will. 100%. Like it was a guarantee this week when I saw a heron, we caught fish in front of him. Yeah. So that's starting, and that'll become more prevalent over the, especially this weather we've got. So. Any more questions? This is my favorite part, by the way. I mean, I don't mind sitting up here talking about what I'm talking about, but I'm not real good at planning things. I don't ever plan this stuff out. I just kind of do it off the cuff, and so I love the interaction. When you guys are asking me questions, that's my favorite part.
You mentioned the Square Bill crankbait.
Yes, sir.
I've looked it up. I don't understand why the benefit over that over a round bill.
Well, Squirt Bill, it's about the deflection qualities, and there's a couple different ways that a crankbait can deflect off things. The bill is a big part of it. The bill is a very big part of it. And traditionally, a square bill with traditional crankbait bodies, a square bill will deflect off cover much better than a round bill will. Now, all billed crankbaits will deflect off cover. Some better than others. They're not all created equal. But a square bill traditionally was the easiest bait to bounce off wood without getting snagged. But there's now some new baits, and there's this is the 6th Sense show tonight, but it is what it is. They do a good job of being innovative and making better products. That's what they do. They have a bait called the Movement 80X, and it doesn't dive very deep at all. Deepest you'll get it's about 2 feet. You're not going to get real deep with it. But when you look at that bait, and I wish I had one in here with me right now, when you look at that bait, the bill, it's round. It has it's an odd shaped bill. It kind of is a wide, rounded bill. But if you look at the front of that bait, that bill is wider than the body. And the other thing is the body is elongated. It has like a slower taper. You know, most of your crankbaits have that teardrop shape, kind of that fat body up front, tapers real quick. This one doesn't. It's a slower, longer tapering body. And what that does is create a wider swing because the body's longer and narrower. So the crankbait swings wider. Well, that makes the head swing wider, and you've got a wider bill. So now the head's swinging so wide that when it hits a stump, as it comes up and it hits this stump, it has so much momentum, it bounces. Like it will literally jump 6 inches, 8 inches off the stump. You'll be reeling it, it'll hit that stump and go, boom, you'll see your line move over. You're like, what? Did I get bit? No, that's just that bait. And when that bait's doing this and it's going, boom, man, if there's a fish looking at it by that stump, he can't help it. I mean, he's got to slap it or something, and he ain't got hands, so he's caught. He don't know it yet. So that is
So
the
not
most
necessarily the square bill. The action has a lot to do with it too.
But yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily the square bill, but of the baits that I've found for shallow, if you don't have that Movement 80X, the square bill is the next best option. It's the best at deflecting other than that. The square bill works so well because it has that pointed bill that is as wide as the body. And so as the head's swinging like this, the bill sticks out a little bit further than the head does. And the rounded bills don't have as much, it's not as sharp of a deal, they don't stick out as far. If you look at a lot of the square bills, they'll kind of angle out from the body a little bit and then square off. They're not all just straight square. Some are, like the Strike King ones are, but the really high-end square bills, like some of the, I wish Ronnie was here because he knows all these old, like, Japanese custom square bills that are just unbelievably good. He knows all their names. I don't know the names of their baits, but a lot of them have a bill that kind of comes out like this and then squares off. It's not just a straight square. It's more of a this. So it's similar to the Movement 80X and the bill design. But, yeah,
So you're looking to get a little bit wider than the body then, whatever bill you're
Yep.
fishing with.
I think that's the elite of the elite. Like the best of the best shallow diving crankbaits have that quality.
Perfect, thanks.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
When you start throwing jerk baits?
Right now.
Firewood.
It's time. It's
Don't, huh?
You talking about that big Kanata? Yeah. If you found the gizzard shad and you have enough depth to get away with throwing that, the problem with that Kanata is it'll get a little deeper. Yeah, in a shallow grass it'll hurt you. So, right now with the grass being real shallow like we are, that 106 type crank jerk bait that 6 Sense makes, Mega Bass Vision 110. Those you can, especially if you use a little bit bigger line, you can kind of keep them up. And another one that's as old as dirt, this was around when I was a kid. That's really, really good right now. Is a Rattling Road. That's good in that shallow scattered grass. When you got to fish real shallow in that scattered grass, that Rattling Rogue is a bad son of a gun. Get that old gold chrome one. You know what I'm talking about? With that orange belly. Whoo! Son, I've caught a lot of fish in that in the cold water. And but yeah, it's time. You got to fish them real fast right now, though. It ain't, it's not your. And that's probably why I can catch fish on a jerkbait right now because, man, I suck at this. I can't do that.
That's some December stuff right there.
I can't do that. I can't, like, my jerkbait fishing is like, are there birds around? Look at that bait fish over there. Hey, y'all see that? Like, that's how I fish a jerkbait. So right now it works for me because that's how you got to fish it. You got to go real fast with a jerkbait right now. But yeah, right now it's the time.
Are you fishing that lipless crankbait fast?
I'm fishing everything fast. Everything fast except when I stop and then I pick that stick bait up and then I go like it's one extreme or the other type of deal. Yeah, I'm fishing that lipless crankbait real fast. I'm fishing it on a 7-3-to-1 retrieve and I'm getting it. I mean, and the deal is I'm hitting that grass. And that grass, I'm hitting that grass, and as soon as it hits that grass, I snap it. And that little split-second pause and then jerk, that's what gets them to bite. Does that make sense? So the way I fish it, I'm fishing it faster right now because the grass is shallower and I'm using a bigger lipless crankbait. So I have to fish it fast, which is a good thing because everything, even my swim baits and all, I'm fishing them fast right now. So right now that works. If the water was colder and the grass was only real shallow and I was trying to fish shallow grass in cold water, I would have to go to a 1/4 ounce lipless crankbait to slow down. But the deal with the lipless crankbait is no matter what, you fish it the same way all the time. It's like a chatterbait. There's only one, to me, when you're fishing these baits around grass, these ripping baits, chatterbait, lipless crankbait are probably the top two that everybody likes to rip out of grass, me included. It's the same retrieve every time. You make your cast, you start reeling, and you start slowing down, and you point your rod out. Don't point it down. I see so many people do this, or do this, or do. You guys are tournament fishermen, right? You want to be better at tournament fishermen? Concentrate. Fish harder. Put more effort into it mentally. Because so many people want to take a lipless crankbait, and I see it every day in my boat on guy trips. They throw it out there and they just want to reel it in. And they're not paying attention. And then they get in the grass and they're like, oh, I'm bogged down in the, God dang, man. That thing won't rip out of that grass. It's not ripping out of the grass because you're not paying attention. It'll rip out of the grass, but you have to fish it. Like it's not, there's a reason why there's guys that catch them better than everybody every time. It's because they're fishing harder and they're paying more attention and they're using better techniques. So with that lipless crankbait or chatterbait, you throw it out there, you point it straight out to slightly up. And what that does is when you rip, it puts immediate leverage on your line. There's no bend in your rod. If you're fishing your lipless crankbait up here or down here, you don't have any power when you rip. But if you got it out here and I go, man, I just moved a whole bunch of line real quick. And that's what gets that bait to shoot out. So I throw it out there and I start reeling. And then I start slowing down. I'm paying real close attention. And the split second that I start to feel a little bit of pressure from the grass, I rip and I speed up. And then I start slowing down. As soon as I feel grass, I rip and I speed it up. Slow it down. So you're just feathering that bait, feeling for grass the whole time. So you hit that grass, it'll pop up, you'll speed up, and then you'll start slowly gliding down. Feel that grass, pop it up, speed it up, just like that. Does that make sense? So the size of your bait on a lipless crankbait is going to determine how fast or slow you go, given the depth of grass you're fishing. If I'm at Sam Rayburn and I'm fishing in the wintertime and the grass tops are knocked down and I'm fishing 8 foot of water, I'm fishing, a hydrilla edge and 8 foot of water, well, I'm going to use a 3/4, even a 1 ounce lipless crankbait so that it'll get down in that grass to go the speed I want. Or if I want to go real slow, I'll fish a 1/2 ounce and I just got to barely crawl it and then tick that grass and rip out. But if I'm fishing shallow grass and I need to slow down, I got to go to a smaller lipless crankbait. That make sense? Okay.
So I watched your live stream last night.
Yes, sir.
So what's your decision between the chatterbait or the lipless crankbait?
Lipless crankbait right now. Lipless crankbait right now. Yeah. And that could change at any time. Chatterbait's a great bait in the fall. Chatterbait's a great bait all time of year, and it's kind of my crutch, so to speak. But right now, this week, the bigger fish are on that lipless crankbait deal.
So it's not so much conditions as okay, either one of these could work. Which one are they eating right now?
That's right. Yeah, it's just they're kind of small brain creatures that do weird things for weird reasons, and right now they're biting that lipless crankbait better than they are that chatterbait. And listen, all this stuff is subjective. Like there's no absolutes to anything that we ever talk about up here. Tomorrow you go out there, they might be biting spinnerbait better than all this stuff, and I just ain't thrown one yet. You know what I mean? So, I have baits, and we all do this. I have baits that I tend to lean on, and a chatterbait and a lipless crankbait are two of them. I've been on a chatterbait since it first came out. I've been fishing it for 10 years now, and it's been a great bait for me. It's caught a lot of really big fish. I grew up in Conroe, Texas, and I got to go to Rayburn a lot as a kid, and so I grew up throwing a lipless crankbait in grass religiously. It was the first real moving bait that I learned how to throw when I was young, so it's comfortable to me. So I tend to throw those two first, where somebody else may throw a spinnerbait. Or like Heath Taylor from Smash Tech, he's going to throw a swim bait. And right now, I promise you, he'd come out here and clean them out on a swim bait. He would. So, there's some of that in it too. It's just personal preferences. There's so many ways. It's hard right now. There's so many ways to do it. It's hard to pick one of them.
Swim bait's what actually what I was going to ask you about. Something like poacher. How fast you pull them?
Well, the poacher, I'm going to fish it right now as fast as I can. For a swim bait, I probably wouldn't pick the poacher right now. I like the baby poacher right now because I can fish it fast. But those hollow bodies, it's time to kind of start thinking about throwing that hollow body because you can fish it fast, and it's got a real tight wiggle, real fast action to it. It's time to throw that hollow body, and then after the water keeps cooling off throughout this next week, that's when we'll kind of start going to the, that water gets down good in the 60s. We'll start picking up the convicts and the poachers and the slow baits. But right now, you want something that's going to move a little bit, kick a little bit. But I do, for me. Anything else? You got him right there. You got him in your bag. That's my man right there. Hey, I know the 6 cents baits we talked about. Unfortunately, they don't have them in stock here, but 6centsfishing.com. You guys probably have all seen my stuff. If you go to 6centsfishing.com, you can get a 10% discount. All you got to do is on the checkout screen, punch in the code Your Lake Fork Guide. So we appreciate you shopping there. We want to give you a little bit of love on that. But the Whopper Ploppers they do sell here. They have a very wide selection of Whopper Ploppers. They've got, I think they got some Yamamoto stick baits down there. Those would be great baits for you guys. If you don't, I'm sure you probably have some in your boat. I mean, everybody has plenty of Senkos, right? So that's great. I guess that's it, man.
No jig fishing right now? Too slow?
Well, I like that water to get down in the 60s. When that water gets so, I want to save this for the next seminar because there's some stuff coming up that's going to happen that we're going to talk about, but we're just a little early right now for the jig. For me, you can always throw a jig, especially if you find. Here's the other deal that we haven't even touched on. These fish are getting gathered up in the backs of these creeks, and while that's happening, they're starting to get gathered up offshore too. Like the in-between transition phase is over. Now they're gathering. So when that happens in the fall, you have both ends of it. They gather in the back of the creek and they gather offshore kind of at the same time. The offshore deal happens a little bit after, so it's not like I'm not going offshore yet, but I'll tell you this, a couple of spots that are my fall offshore spots that I really like, the ones that are close to a boat lane, when I drive by them, I'm graphing them right now. You know what I mean? Like I'm graphing them knowing we're not going to stop and fish them, but I'm just paying attention, keeping my mind open because I know that's coming. And as soon as I start to see them gather up on there, we'll be getting after. Now, when you do that, then the offshore jig deal is absolutely a thing right now. Like as soon as you can get them grouped up offshore, the big 3/4 ounce jig that you drag offshore, that's a deal right now. But as far as a shallow jig bite, which is a thing that happens in the fall, or the creek channel bend jig bite, which was more of a winter deal, for me it's just a little bit early. And we will talk about that in the upcoming seminars because there's a really cool little deal, and I made a video on it last year and kind of exposed it a little bit. But there's a very unique, small profile jig bite that happens every year in the fall that is a little bit untapped, and it's very, very, very good. It's been good for me every single year. It's very good. So.
If you were to go out tomorrow morning, what would be the first bait you throw early in the morning?
Well, I have the advantage of being out here every day. So early in the morning, for me, the activity level first light is not great. Like they're not just super active until the sun gets up a little bit. So for me, what I would do is go to an area that's been holding my best area, that's been holding my best school. I would go right in there and I would slow down right away with the stick bait until I started seeing some activity, and then I would start covering one. But I would go to an area that I had confidence had fish in it and fish real slow first thing in the morning. So I'd probably fish that stick bait right off. But you can go pick up a whopper plopper, pick up a buzz bait, and go take off. If I was going to so for you guys, maybe you don't have that confidence area. I don't know if you do or you don't, but if you don't, I would absolutely pick up a whopper plopper and a buzz bait, depending on the grass level in the area you're in, and go to covering water first thing in the morning. Because they will come up on top. They will.
Big buddy, like small buddy.
For them, small. For you and me, big. But they're fishing a tournament out here. Yeah.
You fish with a lot of customers probably from all over the place, right?
Yes, sir.
And they bring their certain lure from their certain area of the country.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes none of your stuff is working, but that crazy looking plug that her grandfather made works.
It happens. It does happen where people will bring something. It's pretty rare. You know, most people that I get, they fish with my stuff. I don't have a lot of people that bring a whole lot of their own stuff. And you know, I tell every customer the same thing. I've got plenty. It's here for you to use. You're welcome to bring something of your own if you want to. And most people end up opting to fish with stuff. You know, I think I book trips sometimes because people want to fish the gear that I'm using. You know, they want to check those high-end rods out and some of the other equipment. But I've had some customers turn me on to some stuff over the years that has definitely panned out for me. There is a really big jointed muskie bait that a guy gave me years ago, but it's got a blade on the back of it, but it's an old balsa wood bait, and it has a joint in it, and it's about twice the size of this. But I've caught some big fish on it.
I've got some yellow Alaskan cedar baits that I use for topwater strikers on the coast.
Yeah.
And they're creek chub pikeys. And they're really well made, and they just roll on the surface. I painted them, some of them rainbow trout colored, you know, and they're really well on those.
Yeah.
But they're about the size of a long neck Coors bottle.
Yeah, that's how that one is. It's huge.
Big. You gotta just lob it.
It's huge, and I've just got one of them. But it has caught some big fish for me.
AC plug.
It's like an AC plug a little bit. It is. It's a little different, you know, different action. But yeah, it's a whopper. It's a giant whopper plopper is what it is. But it's made out of balsa wood. It's a little more subtle. It's not, you know, this is a loud bait. When you move this bait fast, it's really loud. That bait, it has like a thinner metal blade, like a gold-plated metal blade on it, and it's balsa wood. Balsa wood's one of the quietest materials as far as what fishing baits are made of. It's just real quiet, subtle presence with balsa wood baits. But maybe the most unique one was a guy brought some really big for what we're used to, because we think of an inline spinner as being like a crappie bait. But this guy brought like some muskie baits. And they were big inline spinners, and he wore their butts out. And I was like, where can I get those? He goes, in my garage. He made them himself. Like, well, dang it, man, that doesn't help me any. So I never did get any of those. But yeah, that guy, he whooped on with them some big inline spinners that day he came with me. That was
They're
pretty
not, online.
Yeah, I could go find some. Yeah, absolutely. You could go find some inline spinners. I wanted the one he was throwing though. He wasn't giving it up though, because that one was catching them. I don't know how the other ones catch them. I know how that one was catching them. Yeah. Anything else?
What's the biggest fish you caught for this year?
I've had 2 over 12 pounds get caught with me. 2 ounces and 12 3 ounces. We had one this year, but it wasn't on Fort. It was 12 pounds, 13 ounces. Actually, weather pattern was moving through, and the further south we went, the clearer the weather was. So we went to Lake Athens, and it was like the first guide trip, maybe the second. But it was like this is the first time of the year that I hadn't even been fishing Lake Athens. We literally went there because the weather kind of pushed us off, and went down there and caught a almost 13 pounder. So yeah, we've had some big ones. It's been a fun ride. It's been an interesting adventure fishing here. All the double-digit fish that we've seen, which, you know, you'll hear some guys throw some crazy numbers out there about 10 pounders. Oh, we caught 15 this year. Let me tell you something. If somebody catches a 10 pounder, they are getting a weight on it, and they are documenting it. I don't know anybody that wouldn't, especially guides. Guides are really going to document it because it's going to make them, you know, make more people want to book them. You know, we had 4 the last 2 years, and we've had 3 this year. And I don't know if anybody's had any more. We've been real, not like where you can really look back and see the documentation of them and all that. Like, we've been really fortunate.
They pulled a 10-6 out of Pines 2 weeks ago.
Pines has got some big fish. You know, all these lakes around here have really big fish. You know, heck, Lake Hallbrook kicked out a 13 pounder this summer.
That bass cat last week had a 10-6.
Yeah. I mean, listen, We were literally going through turnover. The fish were super light because it was still summertime when they had the Sealy tournament out here, and they still had 2 fish over 10 pounds. Where do you go in the country when the fish are at the lightest weight of the year? You got turnover conditions, it's fishing terrible, and there's 2 fish over 10 pounds weighed in a tournament. You know, we're just, people are always, it's like everything else. You know, Tom Brady cheats, right? No, he's just better. Well, everybody wants to knock Lake Fork too. Everybody wants to try and knock it off the pedestal or claim that it's not the best big bass lake out there. But the data is the data. I mean, who remembers the Skeeter Owners Tournament this year? 30-something, I think it was, overs in a day and a half.
It's a bunch.
24. Hey, I've caught more 10-pounders that were in the slot than I have that were out of the slot. Now, these fish didn't weigh very much because they were the spawn lingered on, and those fish were all real post spawn and didn't weigh that much. But 24-inch fish is a big old fish, and we had 30-something of them caught in a day and a half tournament. That doesn't happen anywhere. Here's another thing to think about. And I know they caught, what did Cobb catch here this year? 15, 14?
117, I think.
Over 4 days. So, you know, almost a 30-pound average. Almost a 30-pound bag average. Well, the lake literally flooded the night before that tournament started. Like, the one time they've been here when the stars were kind of lined up was in 2014. And they had the Toyota Texas Bass Classic. They fished for 3 days. And there's never, ever, the big boys, the Bassmaster Elites, those guys, that level of tournament fishing has only been here a few times because of the slot limit and all that stuff. So it's only been here a few times. And I want you to think about this. All these big tours, they go to Lake Gunnersville, Lake Okeechobee, Lake Sam Rayburn, Toledo Bend, Lake Falcon. They go to the Delta, Clear Lake, all these legendary big bass fisheries. They go to them every year, more or less. There's big tournaments fished on these lakes every year. There's not here. They've only done it a few times. The biggest 3 days of tournament fishing, professional tournament fishing history, took place in 2014 right here. There's never been 3 days of fishing that caught that kind of weight. And you could cherry pick whatever 3 days you wanted to out of the record, because the all-time record is 130 pounds at Falcon. And you could take the winner, Paul Elias, take his best 3 days out of those 4 days, and it still wouldn't be what Keith Combs caught. He had 110 pounds in 3 days. Do those numbers, and then he only had 20 pounds to break the record if they fished the 4th day. I mean, the data doesn't lie. We all know what the place did in the 90s. I mean, that's the majority of the top 50 bass from the state of Texas history were caught right here. But even now, bad conditions takes 30-pound average to win. You know how many tournaments they have on Gunnersville that takes a 20-pound average to win? This place is, there's never been another lake anywhere in the same class as this. It can be difficult because of the pressure it gets and the relatively small size of it and the Florida strain influence. And I get it. This place, you can go out there and it feels like you're fishing the Dead Sea at times. But we need to understand and be appreciative and realize what we have. You know, we've got something that's really, really special sitting right out this door. And it's, we're all fortunate to be able to get here as often as we do. It's unbelievable, man. It's, you know, it's funny. I've been a little bit everywhere in this country with, you know, my time in the military, and I played some college sports, and I got to travel a lot, see a lot of different places and visit different places, and I've lived a lot of different places. There's nowhere else on earth for me. Like, I don't want to be anywhere else. This is it, man. Because I'm crazy about bass fishing, and there's nowhere else. Not Florida, not California. There's nowhere else that you have this. It's awesome. It's unbelievable. So, y'all done got me up on my soapbox, didn't you? Preach on, preacher. Any other questions? No? Well, man, you guys have been an amazing audience as always. Filled the house up like you always seem to do. So thank y'all so much. We'll be back in 2 weeks. We'll try to have a new guest for y'all 2 weeks from now. We're going to start trying to bring as many different people as we can in here. We just want to keep bringing the information from different perspectives and different guys that have a lot of experience out here and stuff like that. So we'll keep giving you everything we got. If y'all keep showing up, man, we sure appreciate it. And thank Lake Fork Marina. We'll see y'all in 2 weeks. Thank you. Yeah.